Alex Caruso makes all defensive second team, mainly because of the voting going positionless, but we'll talk a little bit about that on today's episode. We're also going to look at Matas Buzelis and his prospect of being drafted by the Chicago Bulls at number 9 and some of his cops there. And we're going to go into the mailbag as well. All that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bulls Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bulls news and content.
What's going on, Bulls fans? Welcome to another episode of Chicago Bulls Central, your number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related. I'm the host there, Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow the channel at Bulls Central Pod on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into, well, before we get into the content, I just got to tell you guys something, right? We're family at this point. Most of you guys have been around for quite a while. We're coming up on our 3-year anniversary, which is crazy to say on top of all of that. But I've been on my deathbed almost lately. Like, I get it. I'm able to pull it together. I have about 2 to 3 hours at the start of each day where I feel semi-normal. I try to get in all my recording during that time. Many people have been around kind of since the first year of the show. Or remember the one time I got sick and I lost like over 20 pounds in a 2-week time period because I just could not hold food down. We're almost at that point now. I have not been able to hold solid food down for probably about 2 days at this point. So everything that you see from me on these podcasts is me getting by through nothing but sure will and determination. That's what it's really been. It's been hard around here. I love you guys. And and this isn't because of the streak or anything and keeping the number of days going with the podcast. It's just, hey, this is my refuge in a lot of ways. This is the time I like to start off my day talking about my Chicago teams, and that's kind of how I've been making it through. But best believe on the other side of this camera, when the camera's off, your boy's struggling. I've been struggling. So not that I want any sympathy, but I just want to let y'all know the things that I go through to keep providing you guys with the number one Bulls content on the planet. I'm dying here. I'm dying. I've not been able to eat in almost 2 days. And for those that know, they know I love it ain't been no wings eating around here in almost a week. It's bad. It's bad. The week thing is more so because I just haven't ordered wings, but the last 2 days has been because I'm sick. But with that being said, now let's get into the content. Now that I've had time to kind of vent a little bit with that said. Yeah, and keep in mind, Bull Central, Bear Central, Locked on Bulls, Chicago Sky Central, From the Logo podcast over at Player Choice. I've been doing all of these shows with nothing but sure willpower. I love you guys. Now, with that said, Alex Caruso made the all-defensive second team. And a big reason why he did not make the all-defensive first team is that this was the first year that voting was positional. So on the second team was Alex Caruso, Drew Holiday, Jaden McDaniels, Jalen Suggs, and Derek White, all basically guards and or wing players. And I agree with all those guys making an all-defensive team. Then when you look at the all-defensive first team, it's basically the big man award at this point. You got Bam Adebayo, Anthony Davis, Rudy Gobert, Herb Jones, and Wemby on that first team. And outside of Herb Jones, every one of those guys is a big. So, it really now, are we getting to the era where the all-defensive first team is just going to be the big man award? I guess we'll end up seeing. But listen, Alex Caruso deserved to be on the all-defensive first team. He didn't make it. It is what it is. He's on all-defensive second team yet again. And this is still a big honor. I think when you look at how they're going positionless with the voting, it kind of makes sense there. But Alex Caruso is so important for the defensive standard that is the Chicago Bulls, and why the Bulls took a huge step back defensively this year. Wasn't even sniffing near top 10 defense in the league, which I think they've been top 10 and top 12 the last 2 years prior to last season. The Bulls took a step back, but Alex Caruso has just been great defensively. You know how he sacrifices his body on top of all of that. And then while it has no impact on the defensive voting, all defensive team voting, Alex Caruso also stepping it up offensively, playing some of the most games that he's played in his NBA career as well for the Chicago Bulls last year, playing 71 games, which is the highest mark in his NBA career of most games played. You got to give it up to Alex Caruso, and he continues to be one of those players that, Bulls fans like and appreciate, and the Bulls have to make a decision on Alex Caruso, and, I get it. Alex Caruso is a guy that I want to see stay around for the Chicago Bulls. Make no mistake about it. If you just ask me that as just a blanket question, do you want Alex Caruso to stay a Chicago Bull? Yeah, I want him to stay a Chicago Bull damn near forever, as long as he wants to be here. But the Bulls, in trying to really change the team, maybe even try to recoup some of the picks that they've lost in building this version of the team. If it comes down to Alex Caruso isn't willing to sign a contract extension here, the Bulls could very well look to trade him at the trade deadline. Hell, they could look to trade him before the trade deadline, theoretically, but, that's a story for another day. We'll talk about that as we get closer to those time periods, but Alex Caruso has been a really, really good player for the Chicago Bulls, and you can't deny the impact that he's had for this Bulls team, how he continues to make impacts for this team, and he's somebody who really helps set a culture. Now, some people could rightfully ask, well, how much culture is he setting when the culture of the Bulls kind of sucks? I get what you're saying there, but he's just that player that really sacrifices his body, sacrifices so much, goes out there and just gets it done, plays any position you ask him to play. The fact that we play him at the power forward for so much, like, I think that goes a long way in just saying how versatile he is. Much like I said over on Locked On Bulls when I talked about how Derrick Jones Jr. has really thrived with the Dallas Mavericks, mainly because he's not playing exclusively his minutes at the 4. He's still playing about 46% of his minutes on the wing. He still plays about 50% at the 4 because he's just versatile, but also the minutes that he plays goes up. Like, you got to ask yourself, how much better would some of these players play if we had a better roster construction and they could fit more into their natural roles rather than having to play out of position so often? And he still is able to do that at a really good level, but you got to ask yourself that. But Alex Caruso, for everything that he's done, the versatility, I'm glad that he's been able to add another all-defensive team to his career, and it's well-deserved. And I hope Alex Caruso has many more of those coming for sure for Alex Caruso. But let me know what you guys think down below. And like I said, more so than anything, the positionless voting, while the NBA is going positionless, make no mistake about it, that is what's happening here. Almost all voting, whether it's all-star teams, things like that, is going to become more and more positionless voting. But when you have a award that's an all-defensive team and it's made up mainly of big men on the first team, it kind of brings about those questions. But again, it's not like you're looking at lacing up those teams and they're going to play against each other to see who's actually the best defensive team. So, that's a story for another day. So great points there. And shout out to Alex Caruso for what he's been able to accomplish over his career and definitely with his time here with the Chicago Bulls as well. All right, but let's get into it. Next up, we're going to continue our draft prospect coverage. And this one is on a guy that I did not do when I was covering the position groups. I didn't really put him in there because a lot of mocks had him going way before the Bulls draft. Now, as mocks are getting updated due to draft combine numbers, kind of getting a feel of where teams are, a guy like Matas, I checked how to pronounce his name. Matas Buzelis, there you go. Is a guy that now is kind of fallen in some mock drafts, right? And that's mainly because of like position, the where teams are drafting at now. That's kind of being taken more in consideration, but also the draft combine, things like this. And Buzelis is a player that has drawn comps from Lamar Odom, as far as prime Lamar Odom, to also Franz Wagner. And this Franz Wagner is a guy that a lot of Bulls fans wish, because he was taken with the Bulls pick, that we're kind of here on the Bulls team. Now, that is high upside, right? Doesn't mean he's going to come in and necessarily hit those comps, but he is a player that theoretically could fit in and help the Bulls a lot in areas that they do need it in. When you look at the plus sides from him, he is a floor spacer, right? He needs to get some consistency with that. We'll talk about that a little bit in the weaknesses, but it has the upside of being a floor spacer, has a great feel for the game as well, has enough of a ability to get towards the rim, but score in the paint as well between floaters, layups, things like that. And his off-ball defense is really good. His on-ball needs a little bit of work there as well. He also has that upside as a playmaker that, people, if you look at his tape, you'll see that there's a lot of playmaking upside with him. And him turning into that point forward, which is kind of where the NBA is going. And if you guys notice, a lot of the players that I like are players at the either point or the power forward or the center that can do some playmaking, because I think that could help you get the most out of Kobe White and Ayo Dosunmu. His ability to run with the floor as well, those things are really high. He in a two-man game, for example, a two-man game with like him and Ayo or him and Kobe, like those type of things could really, really work out as well. Really soft touch around the rim. He's able to get hooks and post floaters off as well. And if a defender tries to kind of goad him into taking the charge, he has a stop dribble that can work really well for him as well in the next level in the NBA. He's a savvy player as well, which you always like that. Those kind of come with European players as well. He communicates. That's something that we really need on the Chicago Bulls is players that communicate as well. He communicates on offense, even with his playmaking. He moves off the ball enough, right? And if you have a motion system around him, I think he can really thrive in. And in transition, which is some of the time where the Bulls were the most dangerous at, right? It's in transition. He's a really good player in transition. He understands how to operate in space, create space in transition as well. For kickouts, he shoots a pretty good percentage at that as well. And because he has the ability to handle the ball some himself as well, he in transition, he could be a really dangerous player. And then as far as he's a really good team defender, and that's why I talked about the off-ball defense as well. That's really good there. Also, he's a solid weak side defender, has some chase down blocks that looked really good as well on his tape also. But the things when you look into the negatives with him is that he's a streaky shooter right now. And that's something that you ask yourself, okay, do we feel confident enough in the streaky shooting that we can make it a more consistent thing? When you look at his G League stats, for example, it doesn't really paint the best picture for him as a shooter. He took 3.5 3-pointers per game and hit that at a 27% clip. So not very good there. Now, he also averaged 14 points per game, over 6.5 rebounds per game, almost 2 assists as well per game. Did he in 2.1 blocks per game as well in the G League, and right under 0.9 steals per game. So this is a guy who brings some of the things that you definitely want, and that upside as a rim protector because of how he does operate in transition and how of a smart defender and weak side defender he is. Maybe you can overcome some of some of those other negatives with him. He has really good mechanics shooting the ball, but the fact that he hasn't really been as consistent with shooting the ball, that's something that you worry about. He has been turnover prone as well at times. That's something that you hope that you're going to work out. While he has that almost 2 assists per game, he also had 2 turnovers per game. So the assist to turnover ratio isn't the best. And if you're looking at him as the upside of a point forward, you got to be a little bit worried about that. He doesn't finish at the rim the best. I said he has the floaters, the hook shots, those type of things. But if you're talking about dunks, layup packages through contact, things like that, it doesn't always work the best for him. And he doesn't really have an offhand game either. But again, there's been players that can only go left or only go right that ends up still turning into a pretty damn solid NBA player. But there are definitely things that you have to worry about that as well. And the on-ball defense, like I said, off-ball defender, team defense, weak side defender, really good things for him. On-ball defender, there's a little bit of a problem with that. And in a switchable league, you may be worried about that. But with his measurables, he has the 6'11" with the over 7-foot wingspan. You're looking at a guy who has the physical makeup of being somebody who can turn into a good defender. But again, you want to kind of see that. He's going to have to get stronger at the NBA level as well. Only 195 pounds is what he was measured at. You want that to be more so to 215, 220 at the minimum, right? You kind of want him to get up on that. We know with a year or two at the NBA, he's going to put on that typical 10 to 15 pounds that players put on with working with NBA trainers. But overall, Matas Buzelis, I can't say, I think too much on how to pronounce his first name. Matas Buzelis, he is a really good prospect in this draft. And, some mocks have him going as early as 5. Some have him going as low as number 12 or 13. If he's there for the Bulls at number 11, much like with what we talked about, yesterday, is that the Bulls have to think about the upside pick in this. Now, I'm not saying they should go all upside. There are some definitely players that's like in Tajon Saloon, who we talked about yesterday. It is somebody that it's enough upside there that it has to make you think about drafting him potentially, right? But the Bulls may want to go somebody who still has a lot of upside, but it's kind of more of a surefire thing right away. Or maybe you're looking at Buzelis and his ability to be a weak side defender, his ability to get it out in transition, his ability to protect the rim as things that you are willing to bet on now, even if some of those other things that are the high potential things have to take some time to come around to. So that's kind of where you sit at with Buzelis. I like him overall as a prospect. I don't think he's the perfect prospect in any stretch of the imagination for the Bulls at number 11. But then again, in this type of draft, there's no perfect prospect. You got to find the guy that you think is going to end up turning into a player that helps your team the most in the long run. And that's what the Bulls have to ask themselves in this draft. And, while I can do these draft profiles and talk about these positives and negatives and show you guys some tape with some players, it really comes down to the Bulls' own internal evaluation. And that is where a lot of Bulls fans don't necessarily trust the front office the most at is their own internal processing of it. So, we'll see what comes down with it. But overall, Buzelis is a guy that I really do like in this draft. I just don't know if he's where I would go for the Chicago Bulls at number 11. But then again, take that with as big of a grain of salt as you choose to, because we all know I haven't always been perfect with this, and I'm not a draft expert either. I'm just a guy who loves basketball, loves his favorite team, and I'm going through the draft prospects and using the data and information that I have. But I'd love to hear what you guys think of Buzelis as well, and how you feel like he could fit on the Chicago Bulls team, because that is another thing that we all have to look at as well. It's not just about a position of need. It's also about how that person at that position fits where it seems like this Bulls roster is going. And that's what we're going to get into a little bit with the voicemail that we have also on today's episode, which we're going to go ahead and get into next. We got a voicemail from my brother Corn. We're going to go ahead and play that now.
Hey, what's the word, King? It's Corn. Hey, my bad, man. Fuck around with EDC, man. EDC is the Electric Dance Carnival, man. It's in Speedway. I'm doing security and shit, man. I'm general managing up there and shit, man. And it's fucking crazy in this bad reception. All right. Fuck all that. Let's get into it, man. Again, my apologies, King, for missing the mailbag and leaving a fucked up message. What I was saying was, I was going through the guys, the centers, and I'm just going through the centers. Now, when it comes to Khalil Ware, I watched him. He lacks on some plays. His motor, he don't give 110%, Other than that, if he can fix that, but that gives me pause, I want a player that's, that's going to give me that energy, that Javonte Green energy, come out there and just boom, be lightning. Clingan, to me, the same complaints that you got about Zach Edey is the same ones I can say about Clingan, but even worse, because he don't play as minutes as Zach Edey. Zach Edey averaged over 30, 35 minutes in his college as a senior. Clingan ain't never averaged over 30 minutes. He averaged over 22 minutes. So that gives me pause on him. How long can he be in the game before he gets tired out? Filipowski. I like Filipowski. Sweet and short. That's the one, I wouldn't mind if we drafted him, the center out of Duke. I hope I'm saying his name right. But the man that I want, and the man I feel like we should get at number 11 is Zach Edey. 7'11" wingspan. Space the floor. A lot more athletic than people let on. And last but not least, you said it. Now, and like I said, that was going to be my nail in the cannon, because a lot of people ain't peeped that his IQ is elite level. I've been watching this kid for 4 fucking years, watching him average from 9 points to now he's averaging 25 points. I know something special when I see it. And I'm just telling you, that IQ is Nikola-like. I'm not saying he's going to become Nikola, pass like Nikola, any of that. But his IQ is up there. And that's why I would take a chance. And his drive. He's a hard worker. All right, King, again, my fault. Blessings.
Great voicemail there from Corn, going over the centers, and I think that's a fair evaluation of all the guys that you mentioned. Khalil Ware, definitely. There are some motor issues with him. As I said before, there were some people, though, that had motor issues about Anthony Edwards coming into that draft. Now, Khalil Ware has nowhere the ceiling of an Anthony Edwards, so, when you have some motor concerns, if you have the upside of what an Anthony Edwards had at that point in time, you're willing to bet on the motor. The motor doesn't seem like to be a thing at all right now, and something that I always I have to look at when the motor concerns are an issue too. Khalil Ware has been somebody who has been probably bigger and stronger than most of the competition he's faced most of his career. So is that probably why he's taking plays off? Make no mistake about it. Having motor concerns is a big concern, regardless of how good you were at any level of basketball. And it is one that I do think why you see Khalil Ware, because his skill set and all those type of things are where the game is going. And I think when you really look at some of the why mocks have him going as late as in the 20s, those motor concerns got to be a big reason of that. So I can't knock you there. Clingan, I can understand what you're saying with the durability thing. Not playing a lot of minutes, is it because they just didn't need you to play a lot of minutes, or is it because you don't have the durability to play a lot of those minutes? And if that's the case, how concerning is that, right? I agree with you there. Filipowski, much like you said, Filipowski I love, bro. and I try not to get tunnel vision when it comes to a prospect, but I really love Filipowski's like where it seems like the game is going, right? As far as a center that can handle the ball like a guard, that can finish around the rim, that grew as a rim protector, that can shoot the ball, has that upside as well. Not a perfect prospect, right? Has his own concerns with his defense and things like that. But Filipowski, I really like Filipowski as a prospect. But again, we'll take that where it is. And then Zach Edey. You know how I feel about Zach Edey, bro. Like, the college stats don't impress me when it comes to Zach Edey because he's not going to be able to get that off like he did at the NBA level. And overall, the thing, even with taking that away, right? The team fit. This is a team that likes to play fast. Zach Edey, while he was faster than people were expecting, that's in the draft combine running in a straight line. When it gets to being out on the basketball court and the way that this team seems like it's going, I don't know if Zach Edey fits that. But again, none of these prospects are perfect, right? And I have my people that I like the most for this Bulls team and where I see it going. But hey, this is an offseason of change. Who's to say that things can't change? You know, I've come around on Zach Edey to where what he did in the tournament did open my eyes some. I still worry about what it's going to be at the NBA level for him. But all these guys have question marks, and that's what it comes to. It comes down to the question marks that you see for the guys, right? That's any of these center prospects. The question marks that you have for them, how much do you trust is going to be developed out of them? How much do you think that these question marks are just those that are there now, but are ones that when you get to the development, like you said, the basketball IQ for Zach Edey, that is something that nobody can deny. Nobody can doubt the basketball IQ of Zach Edey. Now, he's not the passer of a Nikola Jokic at all, right? He's not the passer, but he has the basketball IQ and he has the drive. Even with my knocks on him, you can't deny that. And sometimes, regardless, and you guys, like, I try to offer my perspective, but also be able to look at things objectively. Sometimes basketball IQ really will separate players that have potential from that. Like, we'll see, man. We'll see. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to what the Bulls are willing to invest in who they draft, right? Once they start showing them who they are and they work with what are they willing to invest? How much are they willing to change the direction of the team if they need to change it? Because some of the players, they won't necessarily have to change it, to invest in that player to put them in the right and proper situation. And that's what you have to ask yourself overall when it comes to drafting a prospect, especially at number 11, which is the second highest draft selection that this front office will have since they took over the team. So we'll end up seeing, but great voicemail there from Corn. Make sure you guys are following the show at Bull Central Pod. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. BullCentralPod@gmail.com. Lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bulls related, thanks to you guys. And like I like to end every episode on, go Bulls. Love you guys. See red if you can, y'all. Peace.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.